What is up, my dudes? Welcome back to the URM Academy YouTube channel. You already know what it is. It's Joey Sturgis, and today we're talking about some cool stuff. I want to show you guys how I do this snare trick, because I get asked about this all the time. And this is a song I have from Nail the Mix. This is the Chunk No Captain Chunk song that I did a while back. And in one of the parts of the song, we get to this heavy breakdown, and he hits the snare kind of more of a halftime, almost a half of a halftime. And whenever that happens, I really like to get epic with it. I like to take that snare and do what I call a snare bomb. So basically today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to go from something like this to something like this. And in the mix, it sounds like this. Till we die. We just can't stop anymore. Of course, it's not perfect, and it's because I'm going to try and show you how to do it as if you didn't have a snare room. So normally what I would do to make this is I would take a snare room like this, and I would just put a ton of effects on it and make it sound like this. But if you don't already have that snare room, or you don't have the luxury of recording a snare in a good snare room like that, we can take a normal snare hit that sounds like this and basically put a ton of effects on it to make it sound like it's in a room, and then put a ton more effects on it on top of that to make it sound like a gigantic snare bomb. So it pretty much comes down to this. I'm going to go ahead and mute this and hide it. And what we're going to do is going to duplicate our snare sample track and select all the events and delete all the audio. Now, the reason why we did that is because we are keeping the same mix that we have on our snare sample, because we don't want to change that. That's the part that we actually like. I'm going to grab the snare hits that we want to keep, copy those, paste them down like so. And let's just make sure we didn't change the position of them, because that would be terrible. So let me back up a little bit. This one. So we're going to do events for our locking. Cool. Boom. All right, so now what we've done is we have the particular snare hits that we want to actually make an effect for. Those are singled out now. So it's not every single snare hit, it's just the specific ones that we want. We're actually going to want this one as well. And then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try and make this snare sound like it's in a room. Now, if you're using Cubase, I kind of recommend that you go in here and use this thing called Roomworks. Roomworks is pretty cool. Now, one of the specific things you're going to need to do to make a snare sound like it's in a room is you're going to need to put that mix all the way up and turn your pre-delay all the way down. The reason why we're doing that is the pre-delay makes the original snare hit happen, and it actually delays the reverb tail to happen after the original snare. So we want the reverb tail to start right away, because that's what a room mic would sound like with the snare. Because the snare sound actually travels from the snare to the mic, and then it hits the mic. So we want that pre-delay to be 0, because if it was any longer, then you would be hearing two different hits. You'd be hearing the original snare hit and the snare hit as it hits the room mic. Now, some people get confused with these input filters and stuff. What we're going to do is actually kind of just leave it open. I want to get the full range spectrum of the snare hit in there. Let's hear what we got real quick. Okay, so it sounds like it's in a room, kind of underwater, right? So let's raise up our frequencies here, turn our dampening all the way down, see what we got. Okay, that sounds more hi-fi. That's what I'm looking for. Now, we're going to make it last a little bit longer and change the size of the room somewhat. Now, we need a little more diffusion. Okay, and then basically what you can do is kind of just play around with these dampening parameters and the reverb character, actually, because those are the things that are going to make this sound like it's in a room. Now, I personally like to have this on a loop because that helps me to adjust. Let's put it on a loop. Whoops. Here we go. That right there sounds like a snare room. Original snare. Snare room. Okay, so now the next step is we need to make that snare room sound like it's in a cave. So I like to go to a little bit of a different plugin. I'm going to use this one. It's a little more simplistic, but it has some magic settings for some reason I just really love. So let's go here. Okay, now what's really important is we need to create this crush effect or this bomb effect. And I like to do that before the second reverb. So the first reverb is sort of simulating our room. Then we've got this effect that I'm going to put here. It's going to be a compressor. And then we do the cave effect, right? So I'm going to put the compressor before the cave effect. You can use any normal compressor. It doesn't really matter. All we're going to do is crank that attack, crank the ratio, and just crank the threshold and crank the release. We're just cranking everything to really crush that snare. And just for fun, we can try it after the reverb as well. And another thing you can do is try putting it first. Sometimes that sounds the best too. Let's see what that sounds like. So basically, once you've got these three things paired up together, you can kind of do some simple adjustments. So what I like to do is I like to adjust the threshold a little bit. I like to adjust the reverb time and the size a little bit. And then on here, the reverb time a little bit and the pre-delay. Those are going to be your main controls. If you could somehow take all these plugins after you set them this way and sort of just narrow it down to those four knobs, that's all you need to really worry about. So I'm going to kind of play around with those different settings until I get just the right bomb that I like. Cool. I like where that's sitting. So now I'm going to bring in a clipper, and this is important because basically you want to just bring up the volume to an insane level, so that when it comes through the compressor on the drum bus, it's just going to be loud and proud and really, really audible in the mix. Now, because you're doing this, that's going to bring up some problem frequencies that we have in the EQ spectrum of the snare. So I'm going to have to filter those out. Let's check it out. Okay, it sounds like a pretty big bomb. Let's hear what we got. Off. And some of that high-end rasp can basically just be filtered out. Just not really hard. Something like this. And there you go. That's how you create a snare bomb. It's pretty simple. Have fun with this. Hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you next time.